This video is going to look at the ServiceNow SDK, and we're going to be following the instructions here in the documentation for creating I'm going to be creating a test application by following the instructions here. So this video is not a theoretical look at ServiceNow SDK. It's actually just going through the procedures for creating an application with a module and looking at just digging around and seeing how it looks once we're in there. So I guess a bit of warning, if you have already installed the SDK and you did a test app already by following the instructions here, I'm not really adding anything to the equation, so you can move on to the next video. But if you haven't done this or you're having some trouble getting this to work, this video might be helpful to you. This is I did this once, so this is the second time I'm doing it, and hopefully we won't run into too many snags along the way. So first thing is to fire up the documentation, and I'll put a link to this in the description. And we'll want to go to the ServiceNow SDK. So they start you off with some theoretical stuff, and I won't go over this. You can read it yourself. ServiceNow SDK benefits. Again, I won't go into detail here, but if you're watching this video, you probably know what the benefits are. I mean, this thing, I'm super excited about it because we'll be able to use third-party libraries, to do all kinds of stuff that we've always wanted to do in ServiceNow and couldn't do. Hopefully, this will be the solution for that. I will also point out that there is a great video from the ServiceNow community. I think it's I don't remember what program it is, but they have the sort of program managers behind this SDK. They do an interview with Chuck Tomasi, I think, for like a good 50 minutes. It's really awesome. So definitely check that out. Okay, so let's get started here. We're in the ServiceNow, the documentation. Let's head over to install the ServiceNow SDK. So first you need to have Node.js and NPM Node Package Manager v8 or later. So there are probably 8 billion videos on how to install Node.js. So I won't do that here. I've already installed it myself. I think I have like version 20 or something. And then same for NPM. There's also 8 billion plus videos on how to do that. So you can just install that on your machine. Okay, so then they give you some helpful, and this is actually helpful. We will do this. We'll just make sure that NPM, the correct version, is installed. So you can go node-v. And so I'm running 20.9.0, so that fits the requirement, 16.6.0 or later. And then npm-v, that just takes a second or two to fire up, but we will see the result is we have it. Come on, there we go. Yeah, so I'm running version 10. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is install the ServiceNow SDK, which is actually just a module. And you can just copy pasta this right out. It's running in global, so it's not going to run in any, if you don't have that global option, it's going to install in whatever folder you're in, and we don't want that. We want this to be in global. So again, back to the command prompt. And whoops, right, just copy paste that thing right in there. It'll probably tell me it's already installed or something like that. Let's see. Okay, so that's firing up. It's actually just going to install over what I already have. Okay, so I did pause the video and just unpaused it so you didn't have to watch the progress bar. So this is what it looks like after it installs. We are getting some errors here about, or some warnings, I should say. that these ServiceNow modules are require 16.16, but the current is 20. I'm not sure why that's happening because theoretically a later version should be fine, but anyway, and it doesn't impede anything from functioning, but just so you know, you probably will get these warnings. But at the end we have, and mine says changed because I think I already installed it once. But in any event, you should end up with something like this. Okay, so now we're good. We have the SDK installed. So let's go to create or convert an application. And we are going to create a new one here. So let me bring up my window again here. And we can start the SDK with now-SDK. I don't remember doing this before. I don't know what that does. Okay, yeah, this just brings up, I guess this just makes sure that it's actually installed, right? You get a list of commands and things you can do here. So we're going to be using this now SDK create, but actually before we do that, we're going to use this now SDK auth. So what this does is it stores your credentials for a non-production instance on locally here, so that when you build packages and you send them to the server, it will just, you don't have to punch in your password every time. So we just have this here, and we can just even copy the example. Okay, so put that in there, and we'll go back over here. So now-SDK, and then we're going to use the auth, right? And then save command. Okay, so here's where we get, so where it says dev user 1, this is where we can create an alias for it. So let's just call this, what do we call this? Admin, because I want to make sure it copies over what I originally did so that I don't have any problems here. So admin, then -- host, you leave that. Then you're going to put the URL of your instance. So let's see, I guess I'll do that. I just don't want this thing to complain to me. All right, so I will just type it in here. So 64718. Okay, my username. And a generally bad practice to have your instance exposed on YouTube for all to see, but this is a PDI. I mean, if someone breaks into it, they can gladly steal whatever's in there. There's nothing secret. So the username is admin, and then we leave the default. Oh yeah, okay. So this is going to be the default that we connect to, right? So we'll leave that flag in there, and we'll hit enter. It's going to go up to the instance, and then it's going to ask me for the password. So this takes a few seconds to run. Oops, okay, so here we have a problem. For more information, I think what happened here is, oh no, here we go. Whoops. Yeah, okay, we're good. So, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this was when I ran this thing before. All right, so now it's asking for the password, and its input is masked, so you can't even see where the cursor is. You just kind of make sure that this is the active window, and then punch in your password. Okay, and then punch in your password. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay, so I did not punch it in correctly. Let's try that again. I'm going to run this same thing. Okay, it's going to ask me for this, so let's try again. Okay, there we go. So I got it right that time. And then we just get this successfully stored credentials, for instance. Great. So now we're good. We got the credentials in there. Let's go back to our procedure here. So now we will use the create command to create a new project. So again, we just copy right out of here. We'll do this. Okay, so now SDK create, that stays the same. And now we have to name our app. So let's call this one, let's just leave it example-app. Now we have to put our scope in here, and I'm not sure if it's always going to be X underscore, but I went and grabbed the actual scope from my instance, and let me just find that. Yeah, here we go. I don't know if you have to do that or not. Okay, so that's the scope for that instance. And then we'll do example, and I'm not sure if hyphens are okay in there. I'm gonna just do an underscore to make sure. And so this is the scope name, and then dash dash interactive. All right, let's just go back here and make sure. Right, project name and the scope name. Those are the only two things we need. Okay, I'll hit enter there. Okay, so here we get this bootstrapping a new ServiceNow application project. Now, I think that it will create a folder for this example app in whatever I'm in right now. So right now I'm in my own user root, sort of, Michael Local, and it should create a folder called example-app, where it's going to put all of these, where it's going to put all the files for this project. Okay, so I paused the recording just to not subject you to having to wait. And now it's going to start asking you some questions, like the description for the application. And so you can put anything in there. Example app. And build and register application on the instance. Right, so do you want to build it basically and send it up to the instance right away? And we're going to say the default is yes, so we'll just hit enter. And now it asks, do you want to add a sample table? So last time I did this, I said no, because that's the default. But this time I'm going to say yes. Oops, application scope name is invalid. Okay, so there you go. That is, that's the answer to my musing my question before about does the scope name have to be valid? So I wonder what the problem is. Is the 462.323, 462.323. I wonder if this extra underscore is what it doesn't like. Let's try taking that out. Maybe it's too long as well. Let's see, I can't remember how long it can be, but let's just call it XApp. See what happens here. Okay, we'll do our description, and I'll just Accept the defaults, register on the instance, yes. Sample table, I'm going to say yes. Okay, so that time it's good. Now it's bootstrapping and, right, it's creating the folder. Yep, example dash app. Okay, now it's building it. And it's going and looking out for any dependencies. So normally, I mean, we just bootstrap this thing, so it doesn't have any. Actually, I think it has one dependency. Um, but if you then built, you installed a bunch of third-party modules, the build process would just make sure that everything is good to go before sending it up. So it did it. So it built it and deployed it to the instance. So we can go take a look at it up there and down here locally. Let's just keep going through here and see if there's anything else. Okay, so then the next thing is if you actually want to add some third-party modules or whatever. So in this video, we're not going to do that. We're just going to take a look at what the example app is that they give you. So let's first take a look at let's fire up Visual Studio Code here, and VS Code, and we will open our folder up. So again, it's in the whatever folder I was in, and we should have something called the example app. We'll open that folder. Okay, so this is our example app, and here's the folder structure, right? Metadata, now, dist. So source is really the main show here. This is where the example function is, this my function. Actually, before we go into this, we'll go back to the documentation. So the documentation, if you go to the ServiceNow SDK, the sort of the root to this, I think it's here that, yeah, right here, application structure. It explains each one of these folders and the purpose of it and what's in there basically. So that's really helpful. I won't repeat that stuff here, but just so you know, that's there. So we have this my function, and this is the example that they give you, and we're going to go take a look at this on the instance in a minute, but we see it here. So it's importing this module, glide, and export. So this is what will be visible to this application and other applications in ServiceNow once it's up in the instance. This function show status update, and this function just has a very simple add info message, which talks about the old status and another info message with the new status. And we'll go take a look at that in the instance. So that's really in this folder, the source folder. This is where your functions are going to go. And then I'm a little bit getting ahead of myself, but I believe it's in this folder where you're going to define what you know what, I'm going to shut up because I'm not sure that that's what the case is, but somewhere you have to define what you're exporting. All right, now let's head over to the instance and take a look at how it looks up here. So if we go here and we go to, well, either Syscope or my company application, or actually, let's just go to Studio. We can see this example dash app, right? And right here's the scope. Right, so we fire that up, and we can see there's our sample table here to do. Okay, and there is a sample business rule, logic item change. So let's go over to here because this is where it gets interesting. So we have this business rule which runs on the to-do table, right? And it's an after business rule on any update. And the script, and so this is where it gets cool, is so here is our constant. Here's our function basically. Um, so it says show status update and require this code, right? Source my function. Now, if you remember, when we were in here, that's right here. So source or, and my function, right? So it's saying, hey, go get this function, which is the function that we exported here. Show status update. Okay. So then it's going to call that function, show status update, and it takes two parameters, which is the new status and the old status. The new status is here, get value from the status column, and previous get value from the status column, right? So the status column is just a column in this custom table. And so actually when you do this, if you build the application where if you create the application using the CLI and you choose not to do the sample table, it will put this business rule on the incident table, and the incident table doesn't have a status column. So it does run, but you just get null values basically because there is no status column. That's why I chose to create the table the next time around. So let's watch this thing in action. Let's just go look at this. So we'll go to this table. And we'll create a new record here. We'll call this original status. Really bare bone here. They didn't even make this a choice column. Okay, that's what's going on with that. We'll submit. Okay, and if I change this to new status, and I save it right here, I get my two GS, remember from down here, info messages, record updated, old status is the old status, new status is the new status. We get those two things here. So that business rule is calling this function that we built theoretically here in VS Code, and then built it and then deployed it up to the instance. So this could have been some sort of third-party library that did a whole bunch of stuff, and then we sent it up. Okay, the last thing we want to look at is where is it? So this require thing, right? How is that getting up here? And so in the documentation, they talk about, let's see if I can find that again. Installing, developing. They talk about the table where that gets sent up to. I can't find it again. Anyway, I won't go looking for it because I have it in my history here. So it is in the table, yeah, the ECMA script modules, which is, gosh, what is the name of this table, right? This is in the new one. Sys module, yeah, let's see. Sysmodule.list. Yeah, okay, so sys_module.list brings you here. And so this is the first app that I created, this test app. Here, let's maybe add a couple more columns here. Sort by created. So there are two of them, right? One of them is the package.json, and the other one is the actual function, right? So here is, I don't know if we can click on this. Yeah, you can. And so here's the actual function. And it's, yeah, you can't change it up here, right? So ECMA script modules for scoped applications must be managed using the Fluent SDK. So you can't, even though you can see it up here, right? I can see what this is doing. You can't make any changes here. And that is mentioned in the documentation that the changes need to be made in VS Code because it builds it, the SDK builds it, and it probably does some checking to make sure things are compatible before it sends it up here. So you can only see it up here, but you can't make any changes to it. So when you're in that business rule and you're doing the require, it's grabbing it from this table, basically, from this module table, and calling the function from there. So this is super exciting because, I mean, like I said in the beginning, all that stuff that we wanted to do in ServiceNow that there was probably a node package for, and and we said, and maybe maybe you're like me, you tried to get it, fit it into a script include, and then just gave up after a while. That should be a lot easier, that stuff, because we can actually build the stuff in VS Code and then import it into there, import the modules, and then build them and deploy them into here. So super exciting. There's a lot going on in this documentation, and I hope to make some future videos on actually using some third-party libraries and putting those up.